Is the ID Buzz, a new Volkswagen electric van that is nothing like anything else out there right now, and it's excellent. I'm going to tell you all about it in this review. G'day, my name's Matt. This channel is called The Right Car, and the Volkswagen ID Buzz could be right for you if you're after a fully electric family vehicle and you're going to have a pretty sizable budget to play with. Well, we'll get to the pricing details in this review, so stay tuned. There's a lot to cover. If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe. Let's get to it. Volkswagen Australia hasn't confirmed anything in terms of pricing and specifications for this model, only to say that it will be about the equivalent of what you might expect to pay for a very highly spec'd multivan. Well, maybe a bit more than that. So up to about 100,000 bucks. There's going to be a 5-seat version, which is this one here, and a long wheelbase one as well with 3 rows of seats. And it's going to have a fair amount of standard specification, lots of safety technology, and look, I reckon it's going to come really well equipped. Things like full LED lighting, big 21-inch alloy wheels. There's a 12-inch touchscreen media system with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, sat-nav. The version that we're driving here has heated seats, and there's plenty of other really great spec as well. It does seem to stack up, although it is going to be a little bit pricey, so just be aware of that. There is no other EV 5-seat van on sale in Australia, so that makes this pretty unique. But there are some really good alternatives that are very practical. So let me tell you the 3 that I would recommend you check out. First one, it's a pretty obvious one, Tesla Model Y. It is an SUV, not like a van like this, and it is very practical because it's got a massive boot, it's got plenty of space inside. It's also got a front boot, a frunk, which does make it even more practical. Good spot to store your cables and stuff like that. This car doesn't have that, but also it's well, a bit more common, so it might not be right for you if you want something that is going to stand out just a little bit more, like this car does. Now, there's going to be a 3-row version of this as well, a long wheelbase one, but if you are interested in a big SUV that's electric, check out the Kia EV9. It's interesting looking. It's not going to be to everyone's taste, but it's got some really clever practicality tricks on the inside, 3 rows of seats, and it really does seem like a very interesting option if that does appeal to you. Okay, so what else is there? Well, if you do need an electric van, then you should be checking out the LDV MIFA 9. It's a fully electric 3-row van with plenty of nice stuff on the inside. I drove the petrol one and it was pretty good. The EV I haven't driven, but it's more than 100,000 bucks, so it's not going to suit everyone's budget. Tell me which you would pick in the comments section below. This car is smaller than it looks. I mean, it is quite tall. I'm 182 centimeters or 6 foot, and it's taller than me. You will have issues with really low car parks, so keep that in mind. It's also quite broad, but not too wide. The big thing about it is that it's only 4.7 or so meters long. So it's smaller, nose to tail, than a Model Y, which is surprising, right? The long wheelbase one is obviously a bit longer, so it can pack in an extra row of seats, but let's check out the boot and see what it's like. Before I show you in the boot, I just want to call out that this car doesn't have one of the clever features that one of its rivals does. The Mercedes V-Class has an opening glass section on the tailgate, which you don't get here, and it means that if you do have a lot of stuff in the boot, you're going to have to actually open the boot, not just reach in through the glass to get stuff off the top. That means if you're a bad packer, you could end up with your stuff all over the ground. Now, it is a big tailgate, so just let me show you inside. It's big tailgate because it's a big boot. There's more than 1,000 litres of cargo capacity in here, which is heaps. If you can't fit all your stuff in here, you've got too much stuff. Just keep in mind though that it doesn't have a spare wheel of any type, although you could fit one. There's plenty of room in here, so if you want one, then you could probably get one. Now, there's also some pretty clever features. You've got a little hook for your shopping bags, you've got a 12-volt port, you've got, as I said, no false floor, there's no spare wheel, but you do get tie-down hooks down the bottom here, and also these armrests and cup holders, because this has basically been readied to have 3 rows of seats, but it doesn't, which is weird, but that's a huge boot. I really like the interior of the ID Buzz. I think it's a practical and smart space and looks fantastic too. There's some really nice materials, although some of them are a bit more cost-cutting. There's lots of sort of hard bits here and there. There's no sort of real wood or anything. It's a plasticky wood finish, but it is very practical. It's got a bunch of really smart storage. You've got this shelf in front of the passenger. There's a little wireless phone charger here with a couple of USB-C ports, another little caddy there as well. And harking back to the old Golf, there's even a little bottle opener in there as well, which is nice to see. Now, if you do have bottles of drink on the road, make sure they're not alcoholic, but you can have them placed down here. There's a nice big set of cup holders or bottle holders there, a storage section in front of that when that's open. And also, you do get bottle holders in the doors. They're not massive, but there are some tricks to the doors, including a couple of shelves. So you've got a little shelf next to your knee. On this side, well, it's the driver's side, you get an electric boot release trigger, but on the passenger side, there's a USB-C port. So you could put your phone in there, which is cool. Now, let's talk about smartphone connectivity and this screen more generally. It's not fantastic. I'm hoping that it will be upgraded by the time we see it in Australia. It's happened already for the ID3. They've done a bit of a change to the interactivity with that screen. So hopefully that comes across to the model that we see in the fourth quarter of 2024 when this car arrives in Australia. But there are some elements that are still going to be probably a little bit tricky to deal with, including the fact that you've got, well, it's not the smartest or most intuitive way to control things. So you do have this little row of buttons down below, and you can go to, say, Climate, which is your climate control settings, and then you have to adjust the fan speed on the screen, or if you want to put the seat heaters on, that's through the screen as well. Likewise, if you want to turn off your active lane keeping assistance, you have to go to the assist menu, and also there's other menus down here. It's got gesture control, which is kind of nice, but it isn't the most usable thing. There is voice control as well, so you can use that if you wish, but look, there's also these little haptic controllers down the bottom here. So you've got climate control, so you can adjust the temperature just using your finger like that. Volume goes up and down using that same sort of gesture. It's okay, but it's just not that good when you're driving. So just keep that in mind. Now, there's other buttons down below here for your rear doors, so you can actually electrically open them from the front, which is nice to see. And this seat is excellent. I love the fact that you've got armrests on both seats and on both sides of both seats. So when you're charging your car up, you can basically lounge around and chill out for a little bit. Or if you're having lunch and you're in the rain, that's another nice thing to see. So you can just sort of chill out, relax. These seats are beautiful. I love the embossed sort of insignia up here at the top, the ID emblem. So it does really feel quite cool. One other thing, the gear selector is up here. It's a stalk selector, so you press park at the end of the stalk and you twist it to go either forwards to drive or backwards to reverse. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but you will, trust me. Other things I think are quite cool. There's a play button for the accelerator, a pause button for the brake, and while you can start the car simply by sitting in the driver's seat, putting on your seatbelt and twisting the gear selector, you can also press this button here if that doesn't work for whatever reason. So yeah, it's kind of nice. I like the materials, I like the feel of the place, and it does have this really sort of interesting cabin ambience to it. Let's check out if the back row does as well. Yes, electric sliding doors do make a nice difference to a people mover van like this. Now, let me show you some of the great elements of this backseat experience. There's a button here, so you can close that door yourself, which is nice to see. And also, it's got the USB port in the back doors as well. So that is really cool. If you've got youngsters, they're gonna love that they can charge up their phone by just keeping a plug in the door. That's nice. Another thing that youngsters might love are these tray tables. So you can fold them up. If you've got a little kid in a child seat, they're gonna love it because they'll have a little play area. There's a cup holder there as well, which is really nice. We've also got these pockets on both of the seats. They're really, really practical. And also, one thing that isn't as practical is the fact that you can't wind down the back windows. So if you have a kid who might be prone to car sickness, that could be a real problem for you, because I always find that a bit more airflow always helps. Speaking of airflow, where are the vents? Well, there aren't any. It's a bit of an issue if you ask me, because, you know, a car like this, sure, it's got lots of glass, but it is a family car and it doesn't have any rear seat directional air vents. Bit of an issue. It also doesn't have any flip down armrest with cup holders. So again, not as good as it could be, but let me tell you, I still think that it does have some really nice features back here in terms of space. Like, I'm 182 centimeters or 6 foot. This is set for my driving position. I've got heaps of room and you'll fit 3 adults across here really comfortably. There's ISOFIX points in the window seats and top tethers as well. So yep, it's practical enough. You can slide the seats forward, I believe, as well. Yep, just like so. So if you need more boot space than it already has, then that will be helpful for you. But honestly, this is pretty good, apart from some of the missing things that you might wish you did have. Let's take a look under the bonnet of the ID Buzz. There's not all that much to see here, people, because the electric motor is at the back. It's 150 kilowatts and 310 Newton meters of torque, a single speed auto transmission and rear wheel drive. And that's not huge, and it's not all wheel drive. And those two things might improve at some point in the future. I don't necessarily think that it needs much more power and torque, but hey, I wouldn't say no. The ID Buzz comes with a 77 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack, and it has AC and DC charging. The maximum AC rate is 11 kilowatts, so if you have 3-phase power at home, that should mean a recharge time from empty to full in about 8 hours, which is not too bad. Obviously, if you don't have 3-phase, it's going to take a fair bit longer than that. There's also a DC charge port, so it's the Type 2 combination plug, as you would expect. You'll see the rate for the maximum DC charging rate on your screen now, and Volkswagen says that means it should take about half an hour to do 5 to 80%. It's pretty good. So what is this big family bus like to drive? Well, it's kind of like a big family bus to drive, but it's also very, very different to a traditional people mover style van. Look, obviously this one does have 5 seats, not 7 or 8, so it is a little bit smaller than some other big vans, but it does have a very bluff front end and a lot of glass, which is great, but it does mean that the front end is having to push a lot of weight through air, and that means that it's maybe not as efficient as it could be. I'll tell you more about that shortly, but let's talk about the drive experience more generally. So the electric motor, 150 kilowatts, 310 Newton meters, rear wheel drive, that means fun, right? But just don't go thinking that, well, it's electric, so it's going to have as much grunt as a Tesla Model 3 performance. It doesn't. It's just not that fast. And I don't think that's a problem because of what this car is trying to be and what this car actually is, which is a really consummate family mover with electric power. Now, I really like the way that it drives because it is van-like in a lot of ways, but also passenger car-like and SUV-like too, because you do have this really high ride height. It's a very commanding position. You get a great view out. Even though these pillars are quite thick, you can still see a lot in front of the car, but not the bonnet because, well, it dips away quite dramatically at the front of the glass there. But it really is pretty easy to park. My big issue with it for a family buyer is that in this spec that we're driving here, at least, there is no surround view camera. And I think that a car of this size, for the intended purpose of this type of car, should come with a standard surround view camera. So what about the ease of driving, around town sort of stuff? Well, it is pretty good. It's got nice light steering, and like I said, it does have van attributes in that way, because I've driven a lot of the commercial vans out there and they have that really easy to drive, I guess, manner to them. So the steering, it's really light, it's very accurate, it's very darty even, and because it's rear wheel drive, it has a real nice balance to it. Look, it's heavy, yes, and it's not ridiculously fast. I almost said fucking, but it is really, really quite good in the way that it balances what it's trying to do here. I'm also not in love with the brake pedal feel, just like the other ID models that I've driven. There's a bit of a squishiness at the top of the pedal, and also this regen braking system isn't like some other one pedal driving modes. So there is a B mode, so you can get as much energy back that you might have potentially lost otherwise through the braking system, the regen brakes, but It is still pretty good in terms of the way that it pulls up. Remember, this is like 2.5 tons, this vehicle, so it does pull up pretty well considering that. I would say though, I reckon the brake pedal feel could do with some work. And when it comes to the passenger car side of things, I said that because of the ride. It's really comfortable. I'm sick of saying really, because this is really, really bloody good, guys. I love this car. I think I'm gonna have to buy one. Seriously. Okay, so the official combined cycle figure, the WLTP figure, which is what you should be able to achieve across a mix of driving, is on your screen now. And that is, well, relatively high for a rear-wheel drive, single motor electric car. In fact, it's about the same as what most dual motors do, or actually even worse than what most dual motors do. That's because it's big, it's not as aerodynamic as it could be, it weighs a lot. All of those things play into the official number. And if you're wondering what I've seen across this mixed of driving that I've been doing here in Austria, which included the Großglockner Pass, if you are aware of what that is, you'll know that that is a big bloody steep hill. And those sorts of things are not ideal when you're driving an EV, but we did regen braking all the way down the hill and managed to get quite a bit back. And at the end of a few hundred kilometers of driving this car, you'll see the figure on your screen now. Look, I think that's okay. It could be better, and I think it will be better if you do a lot of urban sort of driving. The ID Buzz comes with the maximum 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating based on 2022 testing, so it does have pretty good safety credentials, including autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian, cyclist and junction detection. There's active lane keeping assistance, which is a bit annoying, but you can turn it off. You just have to go through the screen every single time you drive the car. There's blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, and front and rear parking sensors, plus a reversing camera. Annoyingly, this car at this point in time doesn't come with a surround view camera, and I think it should, because, well, it's pretty good to see out of, but any extra safety for driveway stuff is always welcome, if you ask me. And when it comes to airbag coverage, there's plenty. You've got front side, a front center, and full-length curtain airbags. In Australia, Volkswagen offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and EVs are going to be covered with an 8-year 160,000 warranty for the battery pack as well. And it's likely that you'll see a couple of different service packs available. 3 years and 5 years are the most likely options, probably around $300, $350 per service, but we'll just have to wait and see. The details aren't confirmed just yet, but you can expect to get roadside assist, and it should be refreshed every time you do a service with Volkswagen. To me, the ID Buzz is one of the most interesting, amazing, and really, really wantable cars that I've ever driven. I want one. I think it's fantastic, and it would suit my family lifestyle really, really well. I've got a little girl, 2 dogs, and that big boot would come in handy. And the fact that it's fully electric with decent driving range would too. Tell me what you think in the comments section below. How much do you think it's worth? That's the most important question here. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe. See you in the next one.